Almost 200 years after French physicist Jean Peltier discovered that electric current flowing through the junction to different metals could be used to produce a heating or cooling effect, researchers say it is time to step up efforts to find new materials for the thermoelectric cooling market.
A team has developed Smellcopter, an autonomous drone that uses a live antenna from a mouth to navigate toward the smell. The Smellcopter can sense and avoid obstacles as it travels through the air.
The transition from the brick and mortar structure to click and order model started with the emergence of information technology and its use in the financial sector. The use of technology in banking has resulted in the availability of multiple delivery channels like customers, telebanking, internet banking, and mobile banking. The preparation of abstracts is an intellectual effort, requiring a general familiarity with the subject. To bring out the salient points of an author's argument calls for skills and experience. Consequently, a considerable amount of qualified manpower that could be used to advantage in other ways must be diverted to the task of facilitating access to information.
Modern science says the sun is the past, the earth is the present, the moon is the future. From an incandescent mass, we have originated, and into a frozen mass, we shall turn. Merciless is the law of nature, and rapidly and irresistibly we are drawn to our doom.
Having the same dream, again and again, is a well-known phenomenon. Nearly two-thirds of the population report having recurring dreams. Being chased, finding yourself naked in a public place, or in the middle of a natural disaster, losing your teeth, or forgetting to go to class for an entire semester are typical recurring scenarios in these dreams.
As a child, you might dream one day of becoming an astronaut and the next day of becoming a ballet dancer. The possibilities are endless. Eventually, this wealth of choice is whittled down by external circumstances and internal interests. Similarly, precursor cells in early embryos make a series of stepwise decisions governed by external forces and internal factors to generate the diverse array of cell types present in adult organisms.
This speaker reminisces about his views of the English Revolution when he was a student and how it seemed quite clear which side he was on then, the aristocrats, not the Puritans. Later, he realized there was more to it than that, and there were several ways of interpreting the Revolution as a struggle between the king and Parliament, as a class war, as an unpredictable situation without clear sides. Nell says that, in order to seek protection from their foes, birds actually prefer to build their nests in plots of swamp with a resident alligator. In fact, in one study, a graduate student planted fake alligators. The birds seemed to prefer to build nests close to them. Where there's a water source, there are alligators, so it's sort of this mode of protection around these colonies.
Over time, a split would have appeared in wolf populations. He says those wolves that feared humans and those that didn't, so this would have facilitated, I think, the domestication process, at which point humans deliberately took wolves as pets. But that domestication process, France says, may have happened more than once, first in the West, in Europe, and again in the Far East in Asia.
Every morning, no matter how late he had been up, my father rose at 5:30, went to his study, wrote for a couple of hours, made us all breakfast, read the paper with my mother, and then went back to work for the rest of the morning. Many years passed before I realized that he did this by choice, for a living, and that he was not unemployed or mentally ill. The purpose of the informative speech is to provide interesting, useful, and unique information to your audience. By dedicating yourself to the goals of providing information and appealing to your audience, you can take a positive step towards succeeding in your efforts as an informative speaker.
Human activities are exposing these rivers and streams to a cocktail of salts, with consequences for infrastructure and drinking water supplies. So reports a new study that is the first to assess the combined long-term changes in freshwater salinity and alkalization across the country.
For any marketing course that requires the development of a marketing plan, such as marketing management, marketing strategy, segmentation, support marketing, this is the only planning handbook that guides students through the step-by-step creation a customized marketing plan while offering commercial software to aid in the process. The semiconductor industry has been able to improve the performance of electronic systems for more than 4 decades by making ever smaller devices. However, this approach will soon encounter both scientific and technical limits, which is why industry is exploring a number of alternative device technologies.
There is no single method of learning that guarantees success. How we learn depends on many different factors, and what works best for you will not necessarily be the same as the approach used for the other students even they study the same course. We are all unique as learners, although some patterns emerge from any groups of students.
Organelles are the biggest difference between bacteria and cells that make up the human body organelles. You are a eukaryote. Your cells are eukaryotic. Eukaryotic cells contain membrane-bound organelles, including a nucleus. Eukaryotes can be single-celled or multi-celled, such as you, plants, fungi, and insects.
In the spirit of comparative immunology, Baker and her colleagues looked at how another mammal, the black flying fox, a type of bat, handles infections. They sequenced its immunity genes and observed the immune response in normal bat cells, and they found that unlike us, the bats always have interferons on Petrol.
Different types of maternal homework assistance have a different impact on the child's way of completing school assignments in grades 2 to 4 of elementary school, according to a new study. Although all homework assistance presumably aims at helping the child, not all types of homework assistance led equally positive outcomes. Japan's parliament tightened limits on overtime hours, responding to concerns about kushi, or death by overwork, and seeking to improve productivity in a country where long hours are more a custom than business necessity.
Teenage girls are continuing to outperform boys in English while the gender gap in achievements in math and science has almost disappeared. The figures show that last year 80% of 14-year-old girls reached at least the expected level 5 in English, compared with 65% of boys. But in math, the girls are just 1% ahead of boys, while in science the difference is 2%.
Tourism is a challenging sector, on which divides statistics since businesses serving tourists also service local people. Therefore, it is not straightforward to estimate how much business sector's revenues and how many jobs are due to tourist expenditures. For the first 2 or 3 years after the Second World War, a new title would often sell out within a few months of publication. However, unless public demand for the book was unusually high, they were rarely able to reprint it. With paper stocks strictly rationed, they could not afford to use precious paper or tie up their limited capital with a reprint.
Weakness in electronics. Auto and gas station sales dragged down overall retail sales last month. But excluding those 3 categories, retailers enjoyed healthy increases across the board, according to government figures released Wednesday. Moreover, December sales numbers were also revised higher.
in comparing material with non-material culture, the first being the objects and technologies we create, and the second our customs, beliefs and attitudes, the speaker gives greater emphasis to the material culture. He gives the example of the development of genetic science and the benefits it has brought to mankind, despite a fair amount of opposition.
An innovative new product or service can give a firm a head start over its rivals, which can be difficult for a new entrant to overcome. If the new technology is also patented, then other firms cannot simply copy its design. It is legally protected.
Agricultural problems due to climate change of normal weather, water depletion, and the collapse of soil have become big problems in all parts of the world. Many are now focusing on ethics and family farming as a way to combat these issues. A community's urban forest is an extension of its pride and community spirit. Trees enhance community economic stability by attracting businesses and tourists as people tend to linger and shop longer on tree-lined streets. Apartments and offices in wooded areas rent more quickly, and businesses leasing office spaces in developments with trees reported higher productivity and fewer absences.
The networks of roots that plants use to absorb water and nutrients can encompass a space larger than the part of the plant visible above ground. The nature of these root systems can help plants adapt to challenging environments such as deserts. For instance, mesquite trees can develop taproots capable of digging more than 50 yards deep to reach water.
Within this free course, you will be introduced briefly to the discipline of child psychology and to theories and approaches that have been developed to help us understand and support children's lives by focusing on the individual children. Psychologists can assess changes in their child's abilities over time, including their physical, cognitive, social, and emotional development. Being scared to death boils down to our autonomic response to a strong emotion, such as fear. For fear-induced deaths, the demise starts with our fight or flight response, which is the body's physical response to a perceived threat. This response is characterized by an increased heart rate, anxiety, perspiration, and increased blood glucose levels.
Scientists have identified the maximum mix of heat and humidity a human body can survive. Even a healthy young person will die after enduring 6 hours of 35 degrees Celsius warmth when coupled with 100% humidity. But new research shows that threshold could be significantly lower.
Ask bacteria where they'd like to live, and they'll answer a kitchen sponge. Please, sponges are microparadises, capable of housing 54 billion bacteria per cubic centimeter. In addition to being damp, airy, and loaded with food scraps, sponges provide an optimal physical environment for bacteria. Researchers report February 10 in Nature Chemical Biology.
Experiential purchases are also more associated with identity, connection, and social behavior. Looking back on purchases made, experiences make people happier than do possessions. It's kind of counter to the logic that if you pay for an experience, like a vacation, it will be over and gone.
One of the strangest things about tickling is that it's pretty much impossible for a person to tickle himself or herself. The reason you can't tickle yourself is that when you move a part of your own body, a part of your brain monitors the movement and anticipates the sensations that it will cause. As all becomes increasingly difficult to find, the search for it is extended into more hostile environments. The development of the oil field on the north slope of Alaska and the construction of the Alaska pipeline are examples of the great expense and difficulty involved in new oil discoveries.
In addition to exploring the possible antecedents of theater, scholars have also theorized about the motives that led people to develop theater. Why did theater develop? And why was it valued after it ceased to fulfill the function of ritual? Most answers fall back on the theories about the human mind and basic human needs. You ought to know what to do to help a person who is choking. First, you stand behind the choking victim and put your arms around his or her waist. Second, you make a fist and place the thumb side against the person's stomach just above the navel, but below the ribs.
A watershed stores rainwater once it filters through the soil. Once the watershed's soils are saturated, water will either percolate deeper or run off the surface. This can result in freshwater aquifers and springs. Also, water moves through the soil to seeps and springs, and is ultimately released into streams, rivers, and the ocean.
The basic premise in the management of any system is the ability to minimize risk. In the context of an ecosystem, one of the important questions is the integrity of the environment and how this integrity is compromised by management. With mismanagement in ecosystems, the risk of permanent damage to the environment is very high.
The bill calls for the establishment of the National Landslide Hazards Reduction Program within 1 year of becoming law. The program serves numerous functions, including to identify and understand landslide hazards and risks, reduce losses from landslides, protect communities at risk of landslides hazards, and improve communication and emergency preparedness.